All right, Madam Mayor, we also wanted to provide an update. Thanks to last week's rain and snow and today's sunshine, we do have a few areas of concern around town and in the general area with water. And I asked Director Straub to update council on that.
Good afternoon,
Mayor and Council. So as you've probably noticed, if you've driven around town, the Amber Heights pond is at capacity. We have both our stormwater pumps running full stream. They have been running for about 2 weeks to keep up. That sudden influx of melting snow water, as well as the water coming in from the west of town. So the big wetland to the west of town drains a certain amount of it when it overflows, drains past the hospital and into our pond also. In order to reduce that impact in that pond and keep it from continuing to rise, we have blocked a culvert off at the intersection where the hospital is. It's holding back, and we are gaining now slightly on our pond. We've dropped about 2 inches. On the south side of the pond, there's a swale that was put in and an overflow culvert that has been running. So that's diverting water around GM. That left us with about 3 inches of water in the floor of our pump house there at our electrical control center. So we've sandbagged as best as we can around the building, and we have a pump in there maintaining it. So right now we're holding our own on that site. We don't seem to be having any issues. Eventually we are going to have to let the water go from the west side of town. We're hoping it does recede naturally. Now, the biggest cause of the water from the west end of the town is, of course, all the snowfall and the normal runoff. And the whole west end of high level drains across the highway and then to the south around behind Home Hardware, and it crosses over by the Aspen Ridge campsite south of town. There's 3 culverts there. This morning, 2 were blocked off, 1 completely, and the water is right up to the highway's edge. We've had Prairie go in there with transportation, and they've cleared both those culverts. So now all 3 are flowing extremely heavy. That is going to put that property at risk. That's a neighbor to it eventually. There is already localized flooding along the edge of the property, and we're hoping it doesn't come up much more. There is a couple of feet of freeboard there before it gets serious. So we're hoping it does continue to push its way south. One of the things we're going to have to work with in the near future to mitigate these issues is we're going to have to ensure we get some larger culverts across the highway. One of the big issues is a lot of the cattails and vegetation that accumulates in that wetland under a high flow situation as we have now. They immediately start to block off those culvert ends. We're hoping that if they migrate to a larger culvert, it'll push that straight through and then carry it on. The second part of that is there is only 1 large culvert that goes under the tracks there. It's large, but I'm not sure if it's big enough. We'll know in the next day or so how much we're holding back there. So that culvert is holding back water, which will potentially flood the adjoining property, which is the campsite. And then downstream of that, we have some issues with some of the county property owners. One in particular, there's a roadway built across the tributary that feeds eventually into Bushy. And we're working with the county right now to see if they can open that roadway up. And we have some more work to do on that also to ensure that the downstream side doesn't continue to be an issue in the future. So as we're building up and building back all the way from the Bushy towards high level, it's not giving a place for all this excess flow to go. That's kind of where we're sitting. We're watching, we're hoping. Again, the biggest issue is that whole area south, on the south side of behind Home Hardware. It is building up towards the gas station or the gas plant that's on the south side there, ATCO or Alta Gas. We've been in contact with them, and they were concerned. They do have a couple of feet of freeboard before it floods the station. So we're going to continue to pressure the transportation in La Prairie to keep those culverts flowing. We certainly don't want to lose the natural gas to the community. So, and we're also want to reduce the flooding on the south side of town over by Amber Heights. So that's where we're sitting. North of town, the creek that drains through past the public workshop, the unnamed creek, it is backed up considerably too. We did fly around the area yesterday and had a good look at all these potential blockages and the flow, and the water level is extremely high. Footner Lake itself, the creek, if you go north, it's backed right up to the tree line. It hasn't been that high in multiple years. Part of our hydrological program on that lake, we have Associated Engineering up doing a study on that lake. They're coming up next week to do some flow monitoring, so we should be able to get a pretty decent count on how much water is going through that bridge at the golf course. When we had a look at the Footner Lake site, it was kind of nice to see a very large torrent of water entering the Footner Creek, the problem, or entering Footner Lake. But the problem is it was leaving it as fast as it was entering, because the water comes in on the south end of the lake and it leaves right away. It doesn't flow through the lake. So another area we'll be looking at with the province to see if there's any way to change the direction of that flow, so that flow actually goes through the lake and not just in and out. It would be nice to help keep that lake viable over the next few years. So it's been a good year to look at some of these issues and see what the potentials are for keeping that source viable, but it's also a bad year because we've had more than excess flow. That's where we said, any questions?
So Haley, that creek does have a name. What is it?
Madam Mayor, unless Haley's phoned in, she's not on the line.
Well, it says her name there.
So it does.
Haley, are you there?
Question for me.
Yeah, that creek does have a name behind that's over by the, remember the one that we were sending to Google all the time?
Yes, Moose Prairie Creek.
Yes.
Oh, there we go.
Google hasn't changed it.
No, they were evaluating our request, and I guess Google doesn't like it. There's a few other changes I have pending. They accepted most of the changes I put in there, but not the hydrological, or there's a couple of others as well. I've forgotten now, but still pending.
Yes, Councillor Jessamine.
Just a question regarding Bushy, and is there any expectation or is there any thoughts whether they will be impacted by all the water that's heading in their direction?
Actually, Madam Mayor, if I may, I've got Director Schmidt sitting over my shoulder here. I'll put the camera on him. He's been doing some assessments of that potential. Just hang on a sec.
Good afternoon, I guess, Council. We just finished some assessments, same areas, a couple of the properties that Keith was talking, starting off in the south. We were at Aspen Ridge Campground, and the two rural properties immediately south of Aspen Ridge Campground. So there is one property there on the west side of the highway that's going to be potentially impacted today. It's already has overflow through their yard. We're actively working with the landowner at some mitigation measures. I was through Bushy River this morning. Depending on the water flow, we're gonna monitor that. I have not been able to reach out to the Dene yet because we've been busy with assessments, but we're going to see if there's any needs. The properties directly to the northeast of the Bushy River on the north side of the highway are the lowest lying properties there that could be immediately in the path. So there, we're not talking about a large amount of properties, but there is some potential. The Bushy River rentals area is quite high, so we're not too concerned about that piece. It's more on the north and the east side of the Bushy River, in the community of Bushy River, that could be at risk. But we're probably talking, depending on the water flow, 3 to 4 properties at most.
Okay, thank you.
And just a note, we've put another Tiger Dam trailer from the province on deployment, and they're working at logistics to see if they can get it up here to have it standby in high level. And we are looking at making arrangements to possibly Tiger Dam the one property south of town today.
Great, thank you.